Edem Wosornu, Director of Operations and Advocacy in the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief. Welcome to Al-Arabiya.
Thank you so much for having me.
I would like to start by asking you about your trip to Sudan and to Chad this month. You were there, you saw it for yourself. Can you tell us what you really stood out for you, especially like in the capital Khartoum, where you lived for a while?
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me back on Al-Arabiya. Sudan is in its 800 and almost 870 days of war and conflict since it started, and it was my third visit to the country. As you said, the first opportunity to go to Khartoum, the capital. We had not been back as OCHA since we left in April 2023 at the start. It was harrowing, it was devastating to see a once thriving capital city completely decimated, devastated, almost a ghost town. Remnants of war, explosive remnants of war, clearly still there in some buildings. United Nations Mine Action had helped clear some buildings, but not all of them, including our office. I saw a city decimated. Let me put it that way, Talal.
Especially that you've seen it before.
I saw a city thriving, and now this was a ghost town. Dirty, being cleaned up, of course, people trying their best, but ripped apart, looted, pillaged, completely devastated, footage unreal. And I went in with my Sudanese colleagues, people from Khartoum, people from Omdurman, and they said, this is where I took my wife for the first date, this is what I did in this place. And I, of course, have lived there, the Grand Palace Hotel, a shell. The banks, shells. The hospitals, gone. It was really rough. And in my almost 25 years of doing this, I don't think I've seen a capital city so devastated as I saw in Khartoum.
What does OCHA needs financially to be able to help the people of Sudan?
We're asking for 55 cents per person per day. That is $4 billion for 20 million people of the 30 million people in need. I know that's a lot of numbers, but I think the easiest way is 55 cents per person per day. And when with this, we can do a lot. We've received 25% of what we're asking for, and we've been able to assist some 13 million people with this funding.
Which is a good response.
It is. It is a good response in light of what we're seeing globally, where some responses are 10, 12% funded. Sudan is one of our best funded appeals right now, but we need more, and we need it now so that we can assist in health, nutrition, sanitation, of course, food, which is a huge problem with the famine conditions in North Darfur, as an example.
Nearly 2/3 of Sudan's population is in dire need for humanitarian assistance, including 16 million children. And famine conditions have been confirmed or reported in various parts of Sudan, with millions at risk of starvation. Can they still be saved?
If we get assistance in now, I mean, I have been very impressed by what I saw from the World Food Programme and its partners. At the time I was in Janina in West Darfur in my recent trip, there were some 40 trucks from UNICEF, 49 trucks on the move from WFP. When we have the access and we have the funding, we can and we are assisting. Some 386,000 people in Tawila were reached. And as I said, overall, globally in Sudan, 13 million people reached so far this year. Talal, if I may, also on the famine conditions in North Darfur, AL-HAJ, the capital, once had 800,000 to 900,000 people. We understand by our estimates that there are some 300,000 people still remaining. So we can, when we have the funding, we have the access, we procure a massive logistics operation and we get the goods in cross-line and cross-border.
I understand in AL-HAJ they're eating animal feed. But do you think you can get the access to make the aid enter AL-HAJ? Is that possible in the near future to save the lives?
We need this. We are the Secretary General and, of course, Tom Fletcher, our emergency relief coordinator, have asked for a humanitarian pause to be able to get in. We've got 70 trucks in Niala waiting as the time I was there to get in, majority food. So we do have the means.
What is their justification to stop aid reaching people in need?
We're being told that there's a conflict and that the people remaining in Al-Fasher are not civilians, but I witnessed firsthand our colleague in Port Sudan speaking on the phone by video to his mother. He had sent her some money, and his mother in tears saying that we need help, we need to get out. People are being stopped from getting out. There are civilians in Al-Fasher.
And this siege is laid by RSF?
Yes, we are not being allowed to get in by the RSF who control Al-Fasher.
Are airdrops a possibility to the starving people of Al-Fasher?
We've considered or thought about it. Of course, our country team on the ground. Airdrops are not sufficient to be able to deliver what we need. We need hundreds of trucks
And they're expensive.
to be able to get in, and they are expensive. And if you do not have open air space to be able to drop, and of course you've seen what happens when airdrops are not done in a good way, it kills civilians on the ground. So we've assessed, and it's very clear we need the trucks in, we need the deliveries in. We also need the markets functioning, and we need cash into the population. We are looking at all modalities possible.
How about diseases, infectious diseases like dengue fever and cholera in Sudan?
Thank you. Cholera, I visited firsthand a cholera treatment center in Khartoum, for example. We don't have the same facility in Al-Fasher, for example. There is a cholera outbreak in Darfur. And as I say all the time, diseases have no borders. And therefore, if cholera spreads, it will spread very widely. And when we have the access, and I saw some 350 people were being treated every day at the height of the cholera outbreak in Khartoum. When I was there, I saw one patient. They had been able to contain the cholera outbreak. 62 people had died, unfortunately, but some 300,900 patients had visited the center and had survived.
From talking to the Sudanese people, did you feel they're losing hope or they're still hanging to it?
Thank you. When we lose hope, we lose everything. The Sudanese are the most resilient people I've seen, some of the most resilient people I've seen in my work, and I lived there. As you know, they're fighting, but the fight is being lost by the lack of hope that is coming from the ceasefire that we need, right? So the more people are willing to negotiate those ceasefires, the better it'll be for people. And people said to me, don't forget us. I think with your media attention, Al Arabiya and others, it's important to continue what you're doing and continue to shed light on the stories of the people of Sudan. We can't forget them. They have the hope, but it's waning after 866 days into this horrific conflict.
Do you think that the world community will come up with the help needed for the people of Sudan at the end?
I think, I forgot to say one thing. The diaspora, people have been sending money home. The Sudanese have been doing a heroic job. Every Sudanese friend I have, and we have many in the UN system, I have many Sudanese friends, everybody's sending money home. The local civil society doing their best. I met humanitarian partners who had been displaced 7, 8, 10 times, UN and NGOs. A man I met had been displaced 7 times, took his family to Egypt, came back and continued. That's the will of the Sudanese. So yes, international attention, funding, which I said is not as bad as others. When we get this, Sudanese know that we haven't forgotten them and we need to keep at it. But the most important thing is to end the bloodshed and end the war.
We have read reports about in recent months in North Darfur and also in the Kordofan region that they're witnessing an alarming escalation of hostilities marked by the use of drones, artillery, ground operations and airstrikes. And when civilians are injured by the fighting, which they have nothing to do with it, there's no medical help available to help them. Why and to what extent this is spread in Fasher and also in Kordofan.
So when I was there, and I think it still continues, the three cities under siege is El Fasher in North Darfur, and of course Kadugli and El Obeid in South Kordofan, to get the assistance that UNICEF was able to get in. We get in multiplicity of assistance, food packages, health packages, nutrition, etc. So the more access we have, the more we can support. In terms of your question, let's not forget that 80%, around 80% of the hospitals in Sudan, in the hotspots, the Khartoums, the Kordofans and Darfurs, have been destroyed. And
is that by purpose?
I think we are seeing complete disregard of international humanitarian law in most conflicts these days, including in Sudan.
But that only harmed mostly the civilians.
Absolutely. And that's why we call on everyone engaged in the war, and it's not just two parties now, there are multiplicity of parties, to understand that civilians should not be a target, that civilian assets should not be a target. We've been saying this World Humanitarian Day just a few days ago, where we really highlighted the plight of civilians. But you're right, we've lost colleagues. We've lost a lot of colleagues in Sudan from the UN and humanitarian partners. We lost WFP colleagues December 19th. Yes. We lost a lot of Sudanese, of course, mainly Sudanese. So we need to absolutely highlight that international humanitarian law needs to be observed throughout this conflict, and unfortunately it has not.
Volker Turk, the United Nations Human Rights Chief or Commissioner, as well as many others, have asked for humanitarian pauses. What is the chance of because that will give you a breather to get the aid through?
So, indeed, including, of course, Mr. Volker Turk, Mr. Tom Fletcher, the Secretary General, a lot of demand for humanitarian pauses has been going on in Sudan.
Yes.
When we do have the pause, we'll be able to do a lot. But I have to say the bravery of our colleagues. Our Deputy Humanitarian Coordinator led a 2-week mission to Tawila. They stayed there. They spent the 2 weeks on the ground. We find different ways, even when these pauses are not delivered. But we do need them to be able to massively scale up what is required. We do need cross-line from within Sudan, cross-border from Adre in Chad, where I also visited. And here, let me thank the Chadian authorities and also the Sudanese authorities for letting us sustain that lifeline that is so desperately needed for a country that was once the breadbasket of the Horn of Africa.
You have been in many front lines during crisis. What do you think your biggest access challenge that you face in Sudan?
Right now, the rainy season is physical access also, because you get stuck in the wadis. People have lost their lives trying to cross those wadis. But the biggest challenge is security, insecurity, and bureaucratic impediments. I have to say, when you need different passes and different checkpoints and different permits, which change all the time. Now, I know that there's a war going on, and I understand that things need to be managed through military intelligence and general intelligence services and everything else. But we continue to urge that these bureaucratic impediments are lifted so that we can get aid in. We also continue to urge that blockades are lifted, that civilians are not do not bear the brunt of the crisis. The civilians are not targeted, because civilians are targeted. And we've spoken to several on the ground who give you horrific eyewitness accounts.
You would think the parties would want to win the support of the civilians, but by targeting them, they're alienating them, aren't they?
Well, that's, of course, for the military strategists to focus on. For us, we keep saying exactly what you're alluding to. Humanitarians are asking for civilians not to be targeted, for international humanitarian law to be respected.
Yeah.
We are urging that to all parties in all conflicts across the globe, including, of course, in the Sudan. But the people of Sudan deserve a respite. The people of Sudan across the country deserve dignity, and they deserve an end to this bloodshed.
Sudan Army Chief General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan just this month, around the 15th of August, said there will be no compromise, no conciliation with the paramilitary forces of Hamiti, whatever the cost. Where do you see the Sudan in 5 years yourself?
Thank you for this. I see a country that will fight for its survival. I see a people, the people of Sudan that I know, the kind, generous people of Sudan that I once had fatur with. This is my first fatur. Those people I know will fight for their country. The hope of Sudan lies in its people. I really believe that. And the hope of Sudan also lies in the belief of the people of Sudan in their country. 5 years, the country will still be rebuilding, because I've lived in the Mogadishus of this world. I've lived in earthquake zones. I've seen natural disasters and man-made wars destroy lives and buildings, right? But I have not seen this devastation in 2 years of a war that has ravaged a capital. And I'm just talking about the capital. What I hear has happened in Darfur. What I saw in West Darfur was horrifying, let alone the capital of North Darfur under siege. So Sudan will need time to rebuild. The psychosocial trauma needs to be addressed, because every single person I said, my heart goes out to all of you, authorities and people alike. There was a tear and an eye, be it a general or a child, a mother or a father. So yes, they will rebuild, but it will take a very, very, very long time.
Edem Wosornu, Director of Operation and Advocacy at the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief, we thank you, as always, for your input and for this interview, and bless your effort. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.